Okay, so I think we can all agree that the Five Kage Summit Arc was Sasuke's finest hour as a character. At least I think so. And part of the reason why I think so is because he was actually able to go through multiple Kage in a gauntlet. And not only did so, but did very, very well, all things considered. So today, we wanted to discuss a scenario that happened at the end of the arc, but that didn't actually end up happening.
Yo, what's good, guys? Good to be back on the channel. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, show Lightning some love. As always, Lightning, cue that Itachi cooking video. That's what we're about to do for you guys. We got a nice meal prepared for you.
100%. So today, we're talking about a new scenario that didn't happen, right? And we're doing two separate fights or rounds, I guess you say with it. So the first round is going to be, if you saw in the title of the thumbnail, is Sasuke versus Sakura and her team. Sakura and her team, obviously consisting of Rock Lee, Kiba, and Sai. We got to lay a couple ground rules in this perspective. Obviously, if certain things still happen the way they happened in the original timeline, then people like Naruto and Kakashi show up. So we are excluding Naruto and Kakashi from this. We'll just say that they just are not on their way. They don't even exist in this scenario. It's Sasuke versus Sakura, Lee, Kiba, and Sai. Second ground rule is that in the narrative, though, we are still using the same Sasuke that just got done fighting Danzo. So the one that's not in, tippity-top shape, his eyesight's kind of deteriorating, his chakra is not all there. Or he did get healed by Karin not too long before this, but still, he's not at 100%, right? And then the third ground rule, I guess you can say, is that like everybody on Sakura's team, they're going to be fighting with killer intent. Like, the gloves are off. This mainly applies to Sakura. I guess you could argue maybe Lee to some extent, but Sakura is like the main focus of this guideline, where we're just restricting her, not wanting to kill Sasuke, but she has full resolve to kill Sasuke. So what happens next is, first, obviously, Sakura gets to Sasuke the same way she did in the main series, but she doesn't knock her teammates unconscious with the sleep smoke or whatever, the smoke bomb, whatever you want to call it. Sakura, Lee, Kiba, and Sai get to Sasuke's location just as he's about to kill Karin or, whatever, and a battle ensues. There's no talking to Sasuke, there's no getting through to him, they just fight. How does it go down? Well, here's the thing. At this point, Sasuke only has like one, maybe 2 minute usage of his Susanoo, and that's about it. So, he's about to go blind, but could this same Sasuke deal with this? Now, the team that we're talking about we're not using any other feats besides of what what's been shown so far. So like Lee only has the 5th gate, Kiba is Kiba. I guess the best thing you can get for him is this giant 2-headed wolf. Sai has his, super beast scrolls or whatever, and Sakura just has her physical strength and her top-notch healing. I don't know, because even with this team, Sai, on their way to Sasuke, said that none of them, even all together, could still beat this Sasuke. And Sai has no knowledge of Sasuke gaining the MS, at all. Susanoo, Amaterasu, none of that. He is basing his assumption off of beginning of Shippuden Sasuke. So if it is that bad, does this team actually still stand a chance?
Yeah, so if we don't take anything from the war into consideration, then these guys get absolutely demolished. There's absolutely nothing that they can do. The best feats that we have for any of them come from Lee getting beat up by Kisame, the 30% clone. Sakura has nothing to this point aside from getting mental amped against Sasori. Akiba has nothing except dynamic marking. And Sai, his best stock is Danzo saying that he's relative to Naruto in the beginning of Shippuden. So if we only take what we know to this point and we don't use anything past this, which, by the way, we're going to get into this in a second, like Lightning said, there's plenty of stuff after this point that I think is fair to use, and we'll talk more about that. But if we're just trying to be as strict as humanly possible, they simply don't have the scaling to keep up with this guy. Literally none of them have any Kage level feats at this point. And Sasuke is clearly in that Kage tier, being able to box with the likes of the Raikage. So, to me, he's blitzing them, he's one-shotting them, Genjutsu GG, all of it combined, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah, and this is a point of reference. Even Sasuke, when losing his fight, was still able to box in a quick taijutsu skirmish with Kakashi. Albeit it was in the anime, but still, I think it's worth pointing out. And he was still able, he was still confident that he'd be able to take on either Kakashi or Naruto in a Chidori or Rasengan clash. So I think that's worth bringing up as well. So yeah, I agree. I think Sai was probably on the money with regards to his statement. I don't think this team necessarily has what it takes, because
honestly, if we don't take any of their feats into consideration post 5 Kage Summit, he wouldn't need to do anything more than just fight them in base. Like, I don't even think he would need the Sharingan at that point.
Yeah. So now we go on to the next scenario, which is, flip-flopping it. Now, we are going to be using everybody at full power here, so we'll take that restriction off the table for Sasuke. I guess that, applies more for Sasuke. But, so this is full power MS Sasuke, like Danzo fight Sasuke, versus the same team, but we're going to give them all their War Arc feats. Now, we're going to dial it back a little bit in regards to Sakura, because for Sakura, we're not going to include her Kaguya feats. This is going to be Jubito fight Sakura, mainly. As well as Lee, who has an additional gate that he can use, which it means, of course, he's able to open up to the 6th gate. And then we have Kiba, who has a new jutsu, or I guess 2 new jutsu, technically. He has the Shadow Clone jutsu, which, hey, it's only one, but it's still a Shadow Clone. On top of that, by extension, he can use the 3-headed wolf that was able to tear through a bunch of Jubi minions. And then Sai, who has, a bit of a mental amp after his resolve.
Yeah, when he gets like emotional composure or whatever.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so this is, could this team do better? I think, the answer to that is blatantly yes, but the answer is how much better.
Sasuke's probably getting slammed. So here's the thing. Even if we take everything up to just the fight with the Jubi, right? Because that's where everything's pretty consistent with, I think, what they can do aside. So what I was hinting at earlier was, I think that basically everything we see from Sakura up until the point of her of Shizude saying that her Byakugo seal is finally complete, everything up to there we should be able to use for just 5 Kage Summit, because there's literally 4 days between the 5 Kage Summit and the War Arc. It takes 3 days for the shinobi to immobilize, and then they just set up camp, and so they're not training, right? They're mobilizing and then setting up camp. But that being said, these characters up until that point for Sakura, Lee stays the same throughout probably, and then Kiba stays the same throughout, and then Sai, because he witnesses Lee using determination, and then he gets his mental blocks removed, which is interesting. But those two are the only ones who mid-war get something that amplify them beyond their 5 Kage Summit counterparts. But for the sake of this video, we'll just take everything, like Lightning said, up through the Jubi fight, right before Jubito absorbs or becomes Jubito, right? So here's the problem. Lee goes relative to base Guy. Guy in base is relative to Kakashi, with his Sharingan. And then 6th gate Guy is relative to Raikiri Kakashi. Why is this important? Raikiri Kakashi absolutely manhandles the level 2 Jinchuriki, the 4 that he's fighting. He fights them by himself, no problems at all. That same group of level 2 Jinchuriki were juggling KCM1 Naruto. So that should mean that Lee, in the 6th gate at bare minimum, should be on that same tier, a KCM1 plus level combatant. I actually think it's probably higher than that, though, simply because whenever Lee goes into the 5th gate, Kakashi is just so surprised that Lee can do this. He's somebody his age shouldn't do this. He really is a genius of hard work, which implies to me that Guy probably couldn't do that when he was that age, which leads me to believe that Lee's probably better with the gates than Guy is. So if you think that the gates offer a static amp for everyone, so the 6th gate is, an X amp for one person and also an X amp for another, it's no variation, then he and Guy would just be relative in their 6th gates. But if you think that your talent with the gates can dictate what kind of amp you get, then Lee should just be stronger than 6th gate Guy while he's in 6th gate. So that is a huge problem for Sasuke, because Sasuke isn't really KCM plus level until later on, by the time he gets EMS is sorted when he breaks into that tier. And then for Sakura, Sakura's stated to be shoulder to shoulder, by the way, the same language they use for Kakashi and Naruto being equals, and for in the Boruto movie data book, the same language, that shoulder to shoulder verbiage, is used to describe Sasuke and Naruto as equals. That's a term that's commonly used in Japan to compare people people to one another and say they're equal. So she's stated to be an equal to EMS Sasuke and MKCM Naruto. So this Sakura, by herself, should be able to manhandle a Five Kage Summit Sasuke, like with no difficulty. Because think about it this way. If she's an equal to Sasuke, and Sasuke has the Susanoo, Enton, Susanoo Arrow, Sharingan Genjutsu, all of that, right? Chidori, all of his jutsu, and she's an equal to him, it must be the case that her physical stats are making up for whatever that gap is that his abilities offer, to where she can at least stalemate him overall, or be somewhat relative to him, even if she loses a hard-fought battle, which means she should be able to just break through his Susanoo. So, in throwing Sai and Kiba aside, like, even if you think that they just get one-tapped, just Sakura should be able to handle, Sasuke pretty easily, and then you throw Lee into the mix, who's on that same level relatively, and then you throw into consideration the fact that, like, the Byakugo seal is stated by Tsunade to be able to regenerate entire limbs and organs. So even if something like Enton or Amaterasu comes into play, Sakura should just be able to block it, chop off her arm, and regen that. So, like, dude, people really sleep on Sakura, and I think that, it's always fun to talk about her because of that, but genuinely, a lot of people are gonna get mad at this. She beats the brakes off of his Sasuke bad.
That is just Sakura. Lee has some pretty impressive feats of his own in the war arc. I think I told Sage, the one thing that came to mind at first when I first thought about Lee is that Six Gate Lee, whenever Guy was trying to do what he can against Jui Dara in the seventh gate, but couldn't really do much, and he was about to get one shot by the True Secret Orb, Kakashi throws Minato's FTG kunai. Maybe you could, however you interpret it, you can even say that best case, you could even say that Lee was able to get to Guy before Minato had the thought process of teleporting. Which, highest assertion, but regardless, he was still able to get to Guy before Madara's True Secret Orb got to him. Not only that, but base Lee with the QB amp, which Kakashi says, the potency of it, is like a 3 times amp. But still, base Lee and the QB amp was able to kick through Madara, Edo Madara, with just one kick. And the gates offer a lot more amps than that.
Yeah, so, the gates are stated to offer dozens of times amp. And by the way, this statement takes place whenever Lee, I believe, is in the 3rd gate. It could be when he's in the 5th gate, but at least one of those offers multiple dozens of amplifications to the user in both strength and power, or in both strength and speed, rather. And with this is consistent because the 1st gate takes you from the 20% natural limiter on your body to 100%, which is a 5 times amp. So it is just consistent for these higher gates to amp you by dozens of times.
Well, I've said this multiple times that I feel as though 6th to 7th gate, Lee or Guy, whoever you want to say, is reaching into the Tsunade's level of physical strength, which is pretty consistent because Tsunade one-shot Madara. Obviously, he didn't die, but she tore a hole through his stomach with just one hit. So that does make sense, consistently. So I think I don't know if we prove our case a whole lot, because I think we're not giving Sasuke, I know it seems like we're not giving Sasuke as too much credit, but so what could Sasuke do? Okay, so he has Enton, right? But as Sage said, for Sakura, that's not really gonna do much. Even if he coats his Susanoo with Amaterasu, to, as an added layer of protection. We've joked about this, but honestly, Lee could just throw Sakura into it and completely, especially if you're using the rib cage.
Think about the Avengers Assemble cartoon, Hulk throwing Wolverine like a ball at the opponent. That's what we're talking about.
I think the best case scenario for Sasuke, and I think this would be in character because Sage brought this up too. It's one thing if Sasuke's fighting just one person like he was with Kakashi, and even Kakashi kind of more or less, because Kakashi kind of got under Sasuke's skin a little bit, but with the stuff that he was saying, because I think Sasuke was kind of trying to deny that he doesn't want to be a part of the Leaf Village anymore. He wants to fulfill his revenge trope or whatever, and he was just getting mad at what Kakashi was saying, and he went full ham into his full Susanoo, or to the extent that he could at the time. And so that probably won't happen right here, because I don't think any of these Leaf members, aside from maybe Kiba, if Kiba starts talking some smack, would prompt Sasuke to go full Susanoo. But if Sasuke did so because there's so many other opponents on the field and it's not just a one-on-one, then that's his best case, as well as being able to use a Susanoo arrow.
If you wanted to be generous to Sasuke, you could say Genjutsu off rip against all of them, but he's never shown the ability to hit multiple people with a genjutsu at that point in time. That's really like only a Rinnegan thing for him. But that aside, the next best thing would be, like Lightning was talking about, the Susanoo arrow, where he's just like firing them at them at rapid speeds. The problem with that is, like, even though it is a blitz tier above his own physical speed, we do just have examples of Lee in base with the Kurama cloak traveling on par with the Rasen Shuriken, which is shown relative to the Bijou Bomb, which is shown relative to the Susanoo arrow. So Lee's physical speed, and this is why this is important, Kakashi says that the Bijou cloak that he gets amps his jutsu by 3 times. So you could probably apply that to physicals. I don't see why we wouldn't. We know that the Bijou cloak does amp physicals to some degree, but if it's only 3 times, then the gates should be way beyond that. Now, I don't think it's super reasonable to say that, because I feel like if it wasn't amping him to the same level the gates would, then he would probably use the gates along with it. But if you wanted to be like generous to, you know, Team Sakura, then you could just say that like Lee with just the first gate open, you know, might be able to move at that same speed. But yeah, I do think that we end up in a scenario here where like Sasuke just doesn't really have any answers for everything that these guys can do. Because all of his win cons are kind of just like countered, and then he's also going to be getting juggled.
Yeah. So for those of you who might think like we're sleeping on the Genji, like, yeah, ones like Sai and Kiba will probably get caught. But I'll get that. I'll get that in a second. But Sakura, it was there whenever Kakashi, you know, specifically told them to like not look Uchiha in the eye. So like he'll probably expect that already. And Lee should be the same thing, because Guy was the one that came up with that strategy. And yep. I mean, so, you know, logic dictates Lee would probably operate under the same logic. And even if Kiba and Sai get caught with a genjutsu, the fact that it's not Tsukuyomi, don't get me wrong, I'm not sleeping on Sasuke, the potency of Sasuke's Mangekyō Sharingan genjutsu. It's pretty strong, I'm sure. But the fact that it's not Tsukuyomi specifically, it means that they can still get broken out of it. And so with Sakura there and Lee there, I'm sure one of them would be quick enough to get the other out of, you know, the genjutsu, unless, I guess, if Sasuke puts him in the genjutsu and just fires a Susanoo arrow at them on the spot. But if that does happen, that leaves an opening for Sasuke to get one shot by either Lee or Sakura or both, especially if both are hitting him at the same time, like Susanoo or not. I don't know. Just thinking about 6th gate Lee and Sakura, like, for those of you who think we're still gassing up Sakura in particular like too much, just remember, like, Sakura by this point has surpassed Tsunade. Bare minimum, if you want like the worst case scenario for her, she's on par with Tsunade, who is going to town on multiple Susanoo, you know, at the same time. So like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't really know how much, like, aside from Amaterasu, which we just said, like, even if she gets hit with it, she can just chop off a limb and regrow it with the Byakugo. I was like, what do you do at that point? You know, I mean, I don't know. It's like, unless Sasuke is quick enough to cut her head off with Chidori, I mean, hey, I guess it's possible. I mean, but other than that, I don't really see what Sasuke can do against.
I totally agree. I think that, like, whenever you consider the fact that she is just stated, and people don't like this, but it is just directly stated. And by the way, in the next few days, I'm going to have, from this recording, I'm going to have, so probably by the time this video is out, I'll have a, like, why the data books are reliable video out, and it's going to prove this, but the data books are written by Kishimoto, ton of evidence for this, and they are canon, they are reliable. So the fact that, and you guys can watch that after you watch this if you have questions about it, but the fact that it's just stated that she is an equal to EMS Sasuke means that she's stronger than this Sasuke. Super simple. And the only thing that she has in her kit is raw physicals and regen. And I guess Katsuyu as well. Katsuyu would be a huge problem because, like, we don't know that Sasuke has any of his, like, snake summons at this point in time. Because it's not the same with the snakes as it is with the toads, where if you have a contract with one of the toads, you have a contract with all of them. With the snakes, you have to do those contracts individual, it appears, based on, like, the data book description for Aoda or whatever. So I think that we can't even showcase that he has a summoning to match Katsuyu. So she could just throw Katsuyu on the battlefield. That it's, I mean, geez, that's a huge problem.
I completely forgot about Katsuyu. Yeah, her acid is strong enough to, in Orochimaru's words, one-shot him. So, I mean, yeah, that's crazy in and of itself. And I think that, like, my thing is, like, the last thing we'll say for Sakura is that, like, the reaction that Sasuke had, because Sasuke had not seen Sakura fight ever in the entire series up until the war arc, and Sakura just sent a Jubi minion flying And the look on Sasuke's face was like utter shock. And that was before she nuked the battlefield. And we know that Sasuke doesn't really throw out like looks or compliments like that unless they are severely warranted. So if anything, I think that just like, and that was EMS Sasuke, let alone MS Sasuke. Yeah. So if anything, I think that should like prove our point that I think Lee and Sakura alone give this Sasuke enough trouble.
Yeah. Sakura by herself is winning this fight. And then if you throw in, just Lee, I mean, they're dominating. You throw in the other two as like diversions, it's not close. So yeah, I mean, in the first matchup, I think it's a domination on Sasuke's side. And in the second matchup, it's a domination on Team Sakura's side. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I know there's a lot of Sakura hate in the community. I'm not personally a fan of her as a character, but she's massively underrated in terms of scaling. So I like to show some love whenever I can.
I was gonna say I'm a little bit indifferent, but I do agree. That's why I made that video a long time ago about War Arc Sakura versus the Akatsuki, because I think she can actually manhandle quite a few of them in specific. So I might redo that. I might revisit that topic again at some point. But yeah, I totally agree. Sakura is definitely stuffed on. But let us know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to like the video if you haven't already. Make sure you guys subscribe to Sage's channel if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. But until my next video, Fight Snow out.